Well, the view from here is beautiful. I just want to say how happy I am to see this group, this gathering, this wonderful mixture of people who have come to think about diversity and inclusion in MODOT and to celebrate and to learn from and contribute to how we get better at this. I'm really excited that we're doing this. I really want to thank the senior management team members who did a session a few months ago on what we need to do as a leadership body to think about improving and moving forward around diversity, inclusion, and full equity within the department. And this is one of many of the recommendations that emerged from them. And RB decided she was going to be the champion of this initiative. She was going to be the person who said, I really want to take this leadership speaker series and make it something really special. And I want Commissioner Nelson to launch this for us. So we are so lucky to have Commissioner Nelson come here and say whatever it is she's gonna say, because who knows what's gonna come out of her mouth. She may not even know yet, which is just fine. I might, it's okay. Tears are okay, right, Commissioner Nelson? Right, they are fine. So I was trying to think of the two things that I wanted to say about Commissioner Mary E. Nelson. She told me at lunch that she wanted me to say something to make her feel good about her. Which, I mean, come on, how easy is that? You know, Mary E. Nelson is awesome. Her narrative of being, you know, a black girl from North St. Louis who went on to be an Ivy League educated alumnus of Princeton University, to a very, very proud, always celebrating alum of the University of Missouri Law School, who, like she said a while ago, is in this because of her commitment to be of service to people. Like we always say, there's a lot of money we can make in the world doing other things, but we want to be here in this sector, making the world and the state, our lives better. And I love that about Mary, knowing all the options that you have with all your pedigree and all your credentials, that you choose to work in this sector of the world makes me proud. That as a friend, as a fellow Episcopalian, woo! People don't know we go to church. That as what I've observed is your both ability to have relationship, a sisterhood and a brotherhood with some very fine, courageous, visionary people. That you run in a circle of folk like you who give it all and who aren't afraid to be courageous and to say the tough things that need to be said, and even at some cost, can always be counted on to do that. And she probably doesn't know this story, but once I was on a panel at a national organization that was doing a national town hall meeting for public television in Hartford, Connecticut, around race relations in the United States. And I traveled with this woman, Catherine Nelson, to be on this panel. The great Catherine Nelson. Woo-woo, Mary's mother. And we went to a day-long session on thinking about initiatives to improve race relations in the United States. And we had both been working with the National Conference for Christians and Jews at the time on what we understood about the faith community's response to racism. And it was winter and we got snowed in. So I got 3 days in this hotel in Hartford, Connecticut, at the feet of the great Catherine Nelson. So I have a perspective on Mary that I wouldn't have had just from knowing Mary, the lawyer, Mary who was legal counsel for Kwame Building Group, Mary who was a police commissioner, Mary who worked for Governor Nixon, staff making sure that we had the right people serving on our boards and commissions, including MODOT, Mary who is now the legal counsel for the St. Louis Community Colleges. There's things that you'd know if you read her bio that she's all that, right? That she's a stellar career. But you wouldn't know that she was raised by Clyde and Catherine Nelson, and who made sure that their children had an unfair competitive advantage in life by the love that they bestowed on their children. That these outstanding community activists and leaders who were her parents, first job was to be their parents. And even though they did other awesome, great things. So I read this article from Catherine so there were some things I remember. It was an article like, somebody was interviewing her. And there's a thing I remember about it that I know that I see reflected in Mary. Catherine said that her great-grandmother thought she was wonderful. Everybody needs that somewhere along the way. Clearly, Mary is a reflection of someone who thinks she's wonderful. People think you're crazy if you speak up for yourself. Clearly. What goes on in your head, Mrs. Nelson said, is not necessarily what goes on in someone else's head. And communicating your good intentions often just makes you more of the enemy. Mrs. Nelson said, respect people because of who you are, not because of who they are. She said you got to learn. She said, if you don't know what someone's thinking, how are you gonna win the argument? Mary was telling us a story last night about a rigid position she took, a stand that she took that cost her job once. And it was funny. But then I read the article about Mrs. Nelson. It said, once you've made up your mind where the lines are, it's never worth it to change them. That makes you hard-headed sometimes, but I don't mind being hard-headed. Catherine taught you that, huh? All right. Two more things. When you start out purely selfishly, it never works out. Or if it does, it's never as good as you thought it was going to be. And finally, well, not finally, she said, if it looks like it's a good card to play, I play it. She said, be yourself, because that's all you can be. It's your limit. It's also the height to which you can climb. You are either going to make things happen, or you're going to sit and feel sorry for yourself. There's not much space in between. Mrs. Nelson was a very humble woman. She said, I didn't have any right to believe that anything good was going to happen to me, and I've been exposed to people in life and ideas beyond my wildest dreams. See, I see all that reflected in Mary and her sisters, who are also outstanding women, leading big jobs, doing great things in the community. Think the value of family and love and servant leadership is reflected in her, and we are fortunate to have Mary Nelson serving as one of our commissioners. So please join me in welcoming Mary Nelson.
Now, I'm supposed to say something. I mean, I could have Googled my mother and copied one of her speeches, and that probably would have been eloquent and fantastic. But I wasn't that clever, and I tried to write this myself. So, bear with me. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much, because I really thought initially that I was just going to come here, give some remarks, answer a couple of questions, sit down, and go back to work. That's really what I thought when RB asked me to do this. And then I got here this morning and I got all this great information that helps me to understand why you are so great at what you do. It's because you evaluate and assess your progress, and you have a very clear picture of what success looks like, and you work towards it every single day. And I didn't know that. I knew that, the conclusions, the greatness that was evident, because I'd see a lot of you at the commission meetings. And so I thought I understood, but now I get it. So I'm going to tell the other commissioners that they need to be at these meetings at least once before they leave the commission, so that they really understand how you target your work for success. It's not a mistake. You didn't get lucky. You did it on purpose, and you deserve all the credit. So thank you for what you do. Okay, imagine for a moment, because all of you are imaginative and creative people. Imagine for a moment that you have traveled to a professional conference. You're there on business. You check into your hotel. You register. You pick up your name tag. You put it on. And you go to the first event, which is always a reception. And they've got some food. They've got a bar. And you walk into the room ready to mix and mingle so you can get this conference started off right. And when you enter the room, you look around. And out of all the people in that ballroom, you're the only one that looks like you. So if you're a white male, imagine that the room is full of black people. If you are Hispanic, Latino, imagine that it's all Asians. If you're a woman, imagine you're the only one in the room. How do you feel? Take your temperature for a moment. How do you feel? Are you annoyed? Are you frustrated? Do you feel just a little bit lonely? What is going through your head? So you get a little bit of food, and you belly up to the bar and get a beer, and you map out some territory. I'm going to stand here, and we're all in the same profession, and somebody in this room is going to speak to me, is going to welcome me, is going to talk to me. And so you stand there, and 10 minutes pass, and 15, and then 20, and so you get another beer. And then you sit there, stand there, and you wonder, what the hell? Am I invisible? Do I smell bad? So you put in a tic-tac. And then you think that you see another person there by himself, and you're going to go and talk to him. You're going to strike up a conversation. Everybody knows how to do that. We have that skill. And so you walk up and you say, how about them cards? Or whatever your opening line may be. And he says, yeah, good season. And he turns around and walks away. Worse still, imagine that the second person you tried to have a conversation with doesn't even react to your overture. He just looks at you and turns on his heel and walks away. How do you feel? What is going through your head at that point? All you want is to be acknowledged. You're not going for the acceptance thing. That seems too far away. But just acknowledgement. I exist. I've also got the same name tag as you do. I belong here. I didn't stumble in from outside trying to find my way to the Black Women's Conference. I belong here with you. But you don't say that to anybody. You don't want to play the race card. And so after a few minutes, and maybe a couple more beers, you get bored and disgusted and annoyed and exasperated to the point that you leave. And you've denied yourself the opportunity to network, but you, in your mind, want to blame it on them because they treated you like you didn't have a right to be there, or that it was only for them and it wasn't meant for you. Can you feel what that feels like? It may not have ever happened to you, but I go through that probably once a week for 61 years, at least once a week. I'm at a professional event and I'm there in my proper work attire, so I look like an attorney, whatever that means. In my mind, I have a picture, trust me. It looks something like this. And so I'm standing there with my name tag, Mary E. Nelson, General Counsel, St. Louis Community College. And people walk past me like I'm a ghost. I have had incidents where I'm in a courtroom. I was on the Administrative Hearing Commission. I'm in a courtroom, my courtroom, litigants coming in. I'm sitting at a table with my court reporter. Now, how would you know it's a court reporter? Because she's got the little machine set up in front of her, and I don't. And I've got a gavel and a legal pad. And I've had attorneys come into my courtroom and say to the court reporter, "Good morning, Judge, I'm here for the hearing." Because she was white and I'm not. And I tried at that moment to resist denying every objection, seeking out the most minute issues to raise to invalidate anything that attorney said and to make his life as unpleasant as possible. Just because I was hurt. I felt disrespected. And I didn't know what else I could do. Because, as Rudy has mentioned, I was raised to think I was somebody. And the fact that other folks didn't want to acknowledge it was a shock to me. I don't care how many times it happens, it's always a shock. It always hurts. And I've been carrying that hurt around for 61 years. And that's a damn shame. Because I often think about what else I could occupy my thoughts with other than feeling hurt, lonely, awkward, and annoyed. That's a horrible burden to bear for anybody, for anyone that it happens to, for whatever reason. If you're the ugly girl at the prom, if you're the gay guy at the football game, whatever it is that makes you feel isolated and unworthy and disrespected, that's what I want you to try to tap into today. Not so that you can say, "I'm sorry, Mary," because I've gone way past thinking that anybody's ever going to apologize for anything that they very deliberately do. But because I want you to fully understand what inclusion and diversity mean to minorities. That's the whole ticket. I can sit down right now and be done with it, because that's what I want you to feel That's what I want you to understand. So when you talk about diversity and inclusion, I'm sure a lot of you are sick to death about talking about it. It's like, what's in it for me? I'm not a racist. I'm not doing anything to keep anybody out. They're here. What else do they want me to do? I'm fair. I think that's tremendous. If that's really true, I think that's tremendous. But I also want you to think about this little analogy. There's a mouse and an elephant in a room, a small room, but it could be a big room. Mouse and an elephant. The mouse always has to know where that elephant is putting his foot. Always. It's a survival game. Okay? That elephant could run around the room. That elephant could decide he's going to lay down. That elephant could back up, could walk from one side of the room to the other. And the mouse is always alert, because not being alert and missing something could be his butt. So he's paying attention very closely. And that's what black people do. That's what minorities do. They pay attention to what that majority does. They watch, they learn. They become acclimated to their surroundings because their surroundings are dominated by the elephant. Compare the elephant's position. The elephant doesn't care where he steps. What's the punchline? He can step anywhere he wants to. Because what's the worst that could happen? He steps on a mouse? Big deal. The elephant doesn't care where the mouse is. The mouse could be in a corner, in the middle of the floor. The mouse could be begging for mercy, and it doesn't matter to that elephant. And people talk about white privilege, and people say they don't know what it means, or they deny that it exists. But if I told you there was such a thing as elephant privilege in that room with that mouse, you'd get it, right? You'd understand that the elephant doesn't care, because he can do whatever he can get away with, whatever he pleases at any time. But the mouse is vigilant, and the mouse is always in survival mode. And that's how I feel I've been operating all this time. I'm constantly in survival mode. I'm making choices about my career based on survival mode. I'm making choices about where I move, how I move, if I move, based on survival mode. Now, everybody, to some extent, has that survival mode, because we all have to use our savvy and our skills and abilities to advance in life. So we're all the same when it comes to that. But when I know that despite my cleverness and finesse and ability to predict where that elephant is going to step next, what if I'm wrong and get smashed? And I've been smashed before. It wasn't a lot of fun. And the fact that I felt it wasn't my fault didn't matter. But I got smashed pretty good. And maybe even more alert. And the funny thing is, as you get older and you gain perspective, you start understanding that at some point, you just got to do what you got to do. You got to make that move. You got to make that choice without regard to whether you get smashed. Because after all, you did survive it. And that's a good thing. Survival is always good. So if you can be true to who you are, and if you can take some risks and risk getting smashed or stepped on, and you are able to survive, that's enough. And so you go for it. but it's a hell of a way to live your life. Now, when it comes to diversity and inclusion in a workplace, it's very different from the personal choices that you make. But I'm not letting you off the hook because personal choice is involved. And just like you choose to keep people safe, and just like you choose to bring projects in under budget and on time, you can choose to honor that value of diversity and inclusion. And the same small choices that you make every day are what ultimately will get you there. And all of us have 1,000 choices that we may or may not be conscious of, that we make in the course of every day that can bring us closer to honoring that value that you've set for yourselves, or to keep us neutral. We're not advancing, but we're not regressing, or to take giant steps back. You make those choices when you hear people tell off-color jokes that you know or should know hurts someone's feelings, whether they're standing there or not. You allow it to happen because the joke was funny. But there's so many things that you do without thinking about it, whether you're a victim of deliberate discrimination because you allow yourself to do stuff because the group around you makes you feel like that's okay. And so they give you permission, they empower you to do something stupid. But you do it, and you're popular, and you feel comfortable with your group. But things like that cut against your core value. And it's not a big deal. It's just like one person not wearing a seatbelt one time. It's not a big deal. They may get to their destination safely, or they may not. So, I want you to be aware of the choices that you make, and that the whole point behind diversity and inclusion is to reflect the fact that as each of you was chosen, hand-chosen, to be a part of MODOT, as you interviewed and you did the whole bit to get here, and somebody chose you to be promoted, and somebody chose you for this assignment, and somebody chose you for that. Every single person in this room, whether they look like you or not, deserves to be here. They deserve it. They earned it, just like everybody else. And so when you don't reach out to people without regard to whether they look like you, hold your political beliefs, share your religious views, whether they sleep with the same person, love the same person that you do, it doesn't matter. They were selected to be here to make a contribution. So in this workplace, while you're here, make those positive, affirmative choices that honor your core values. Just as you would not allow anybody to do certain jobs without steel-toe boots because it's just this one time. You can't let stuff slide. Because the tricky thing about this, in all matters involving race and gender and sexual orientation and everything else, is that you never know when you've achieved success. It's a moving target. Unless you come in contact with everybody in this room every day, then it's always somebody who's not here who has to get the message and has to get it from you and from you and from you, saying, I recognize the importance that you bring to this organization. And I want to give you every opportunity possible to live up to the potential that somebody saw in you that landed you here. That's all I'm asking. Honor that choice. That same process that chose you, chose them. Honor that choice. Make them a part. Allow them to make a contribution. Because the funny thing is that while we all have an interest in transportation, everybody has a different perspective. Everybody's got a different skill set. Everybody's from a different community. Everybody has different parents, unless you're twins or brothers and sisters or something. Everybody was raised a different way. So we've all got something different to offer. And just because what I'm offering isn't what you're offering, doesn't mean that my contribution is any less critical to the mission here. That's why they were chosen. It's as simple as that. So, bottom line, think about being empathetic enough, compassionate enough, being enough of a leader to step up to the plate and at every opportunity, check out that person who's standing there with the name tag and the beer, looking like they want to die, and go up to them and make them feel welcome. You don't have to wait till you go to a conference. You can do it tomorrow, this afternoon, whenever you get to work. The person that you never talked to, the person that you may have walked past, and they had said good morning and you pretended you didn't hear them. The person who said something the other day about a political candidate that you've chosen to embrace and you think they're an idiot for it. Go up to them, make them feel welcome. Make them feel like putting in a great day. Make them feel like their contribution, whatever it is as valuable as anything you yourself could do. That's all I'm asking. Because that's how you honor that value. It's in every single choice. It's in your choosing to reach out instead of staying in your comfort zone and hanging with the people that know you. It's so funny. When I was in law school, I think there were 6 African Americans in my class. And I struck up a conversation with a gal from Springfield, Missouri, who turned out to be my best friend. Didn't know it at the moment. But she took me to a Waylon Jennings concert in Kansas City. And you know what's really funny? I enjoyed it. Don't tell anybody. I want to be on the DL on that. But it's so funny that every now and again when you step out of that zone of comfort, where you know everybody and you know everything and you know what's coming next, when you step out of that zone, you just might find something that you like. Now, I have not bought a Waylon Jennings album since, but I kind of can appreciate some country music. I have another friend whose cousin drives in NASCAR, and I've been to a NASCAR event. I mean, I'm getting into it, but I think I don't take as much pleasure in NASCAR or country music as I do in just knowing that I have the strength and the confidence to go outside what makes me comfortable, what I already know, and step out and learn something new and mix with some different people. And when I do that, I give myself permission not to be like them, to make them feel good, but to be like me, to make me feel good. And I know that I'm with friends because they accept me. That's ultimately where this is headed, is to acceptance. It's a big step. If you're not ready for it, don't try it. It's for professionals only. But acceptance is what everybody wants to feel. Is that not only they belong and they're allowed to be there, but they're accepted. And they're given permission to honor themselves by being real, saying what they think. I think that's what everybody wants. And nobody should have to hold themselves back or be depressed or feel awkward or lonely because they think they're not valued. Let's do what we can to value the potential, the contributions, the humanity of every single person on this team. Every single person. So that when I come back to the next tracker, and I hope I will be invited, that when you start evaluating and measuring your success as to that goal, that you can be just as proud as the metrics on project completion. Under budget, on time, all the time. I know you can do it because I believe in you. I've seen what you can accomplish, especially under the most daunting circumstances, i.e. no money. I know you can do it. I'm proud of you already. I appreciate everything that you do and want to make sure that you know that on behalf of every citizen of this state. Thank you.